Hello and welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. Before we get started, let me remind you that we are covered by the BIPCOT No Government License, which allows for the reuse and distribution of podcasts by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. This is episode 60, which I titled Eating Spaghetti Belligerently. That's not my words, you guys.
Somebody really touch my spaghetti.
Like I've been hungry a few times, but I don't think I've ever eaten spaghetti belligerently. Like
that's a new level of hangry.
No, you guys see, men don't have this skill innately, but women can definitely eat belligerently. I mean, we're born knowing how to do everything belligerently because passive aggressive is what we do. So,
True. Can't argue with that. Just sitting in the corner glaring.
I think they just kicked me out of the club for admitting that.
I think we already knew it without you saying it.
Yes, but we're never supposed to admit it.
You're preaching to the choir here.
You can't.
That's what it is. Women don't fart, they don't poop, and they don't eat belligerently.
That's right. Yeah. Dude, you want to hear a funny story? Tomo from Facebook, you guys know her, Japanese Tomo.
Is that how you say that?
Yeah. So anyway, I posted a meme the first time I met her years ago. It was something about girls not pooping or something, and she unfriended me over it. She got she seriously got upset. I was like, for real.
Did you see her latest the thing with the Edo period fart battles?
No.
Oh my gosh.
She's like, how did I not learn about this in school? Apparently it was a common thing in the Edo period in Japan. When a bunch of the shoguns or whatever got together, that they would have fart competitions.
Good lord.
Fucking Japan.
That's insane, dude.
They ate some weird shit. It's even worse coming out the back end.
Oh, well, yeah. I told her, I was like, we should have never nuked you guys. I was like, because you came back and emasculated our men with anime and hentai.
Yeah.
And they want to blame the weirdness of their game shows on America showing up at the end of World War II. Clearly, that is not our fault.
That's already. That's a cultural thing. You can't blame that on nuclear bombs. No.
That had nothing to do with us. You were already going down that path.
Yeah. In fact, we gave you 2 America immunizations against that shit, and you guys still fell to it.
Still didn't work.
Oh.
Well, speaking of Axis powers, you can go to Italy and talk about the belligerent spaghetti.
Yes.
No, we can go to Naples, Florida.
There you go. Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
That was perfect.
A drunk Florida man was arrested outside Olive Garden after eating pasta in an inappropriate manner. What the fuck is an inappropriate manner?
Eating it with his ass, like that episode of Adventure Time where he's going after the armor and that ghost thing. He's in to play the game where you pick up the ball with your ass cheeks. Is that how this guy was eating his spaghetti?
The imagination runs wild. Eating pasta inappropriately.
According to the Miami Herald, officers with the Naples Police Department were dispatched to the chain restaurant around 3:30 Sunday regarding a disturbance. A man was reportedly asking restaurant patrons for money and yelling at them using explicit language. When police arrived, they discovered a shirtless man sitting on a bench outside the establishment. The man was allegedly shoving spaghetti into his mouth with his hands. The man
you said shoving spaghetti, and I swear to God, I expected you to say down his pants or something like that.
Yeah, that does seem to be the word.
Maybe arrest worthy.
It is Florida, so it seems like that maybe is the direction that should have gone.
But this guy just sitting there without a shirt on, eating it with his hands. That's you have
Florida?
to expect shit like that in Florida. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like nothing out of the ordinary for Florida.
What's your spaghetti policy here?
Right. Yeah. The next fucking Florida governor is going to run on a fucking spaghetti etiquette platform.
Spaghetti etiquette. Try and say that 10 times fast.
Spaghetti etiquette. Yeah,
Spaghetti.
Etiquette.
The man
That's
identified
right
as
next to Connecticut.
the man identified as 32-year-old Ben Paget was placed under arrest for disorderly intoxication, according to the newspaper. However, before being placed in handcuffs, officers gave Paget a paper towel so he could wipe the pasta off his face. The Herald also reported while in the back of the police car, Paget began violently twisting his body, kicking his legs, and smashing his head against the metal cage partition.
He really wanted his spaghetti. Goddamn.
So he'd been smoking meth. Again, this is like Tuesday night in Florida.
Who smokes meth and then eats spaghetti?
Yeah, he was reportedly facing an additional charge of resisting an officer without violence and was released on $2,000 bond.
$2,000 bond because he was eating spaghetti aggressively. Like
Florida people eat weird shit when they're high. Remember when they were all on
God.
bath salts and they were like eating each other's faces
true.
and shit?
Yep.
I can't even can you imagine like that? Since you're
Lean
talking
cuisine
for the show, like where that man is eating spaghetti.
No, that's fucking Eileen cuisine.
Like you guys remember the
Oh,
you'll
my
never
God.
you've been high but you'll never be as high as Johnny Cash sitting in a bush eating a cake.
Eating cake.
You know what I mean? And it's just it's all over his face and he's just smiling.
You don't know my life. Maybe I've been that high.
I mean,
You'll never know.
I you might have been that high, but have you ever been that high and simultaneously that level of happy? Because that dude, like nothing in the world is unpleasant to him in that photo. Like,
I have been that happy, but I've never been that high, that happy, and been Johnny Cash. So there's a cool factor there that I don't have access to.
This is true.
Oh, Florida, fucking Florida man.
Oh,
Florida man. I love that website. How did I not know about the Florida
The
man
Adventures
website?
of Florida Man.
Floridaman.com.
Yeah, how did I not know about that until just like a month ago?
I didn't know about it until then either.
Yeah.
But that website, you can't go to it and not laugh.
I know.
Yeah. It's
I know.
all
If you're ever like having a really shitty day or you feel like your life is just a big fucking mess, go to floridaman.com. All right. And you will feel better about yourself in like 10 seconds flat. Just read a couple headlines. You don't even have to read the articles. Just read the headlines.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Are you unpopular? Do you feel that your life isn't worth living and is nothing but one big train wreck? Floridaman.com. Now you too feel infinitely better about your life choices.
Yes. Now you too can feel superior to an entire state's worth of people.
Latest stories on Florida Man. Floridaman.com. Florida Man's homemade bomb goes flying into neighbor's backyard. Florida Man advertises weapons class by pulling down his pants and exposing himself in traffic.
Well,
Florida Man walks out of store with 12 boxes of golf balls in his pants.
That takes balls.
That dude had some serious balls.
Nick and
lots of
Florida
balls.
Man breaks.
Get it? Takes because he stole them.
Yeah. Florida Man.
Well played.
Yeah, but I just wanted to point it out in case you guys missed my genius.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
Oh. Speaking of genius, 2 men accused of possessing urine to try to cheat on drug tests.
Yeah. Yeah, prove that I was gonna cheat. Go ahead, Minority Report. Predict the fucking future.
That man has pee.
Yeah.
Two men were arrested Sunday accused of having urine to try and cheat on a drug test. Charleston County deputies arrested Stefan Bradley and Stephen Worrell Sunday after a traffic stop in Ladston. This is South Carolina. According to the incident report, deputies found the urine inside a plastic container in the trunk of the suspect's car. Investigators said the container had 2 heating pads placed on it with a rubber band. Deputies also found marijuana in the suspect's car.
That doesn't mean anything, though. Did you know, like, this is the age of people drinking their own piss and snorting it and putting it in their eyes, thinking it's some kind of fucking miracle cure for everything.
For all you know, they wanted
For
to
all
do
Putting
you
it in their
know.
eyes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen people talk about doing
What?
that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet is a weird place, Dan. I mean, we already
It
knew
is. I
this,
know it is.
but
For the web is dark and full of
oh,
terrorists.
And this is the worst part. This is the worst part right here. On Monday morning, a magistrate set Bradley's bond at $5,615 and Worrell's bond at $6,000. If convicted, each man faces up to 3 years in prison and a fine up to $5,000
for having piss in
for
their
having
car?
piss.
That's crazy.
How did they know that they weren't on a long road trip? I mean, we've had bottles full of piss in my car before.
You clearly
right.
are up to no
We're
good.
criminals. Yeah.
Only someone who is a criminal mastermind would have an entire bottle of human urine.
Yeah. Oh my God. In my old car, one of the kids, it slipped out of his hand before he got the cap back on, and it started like glugging out onto my fucking floorboards.
I
And
mean,
he's just sitting there watching it glug, glug, glug. And I'm like, fucking pick it up.
I would never advocate actually throwing a child from a moving vehicle, but I understand if you do.
We weren't moving. There was an accident on the Bay Bridge, and we were sitting there for hours.
I was drunk on a road trip one time and missed the opening. Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and just piss all over your back seat. Hope you don't mind.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Well, you know, at least your windows will be clean, all that ammonia and everything.
I was the only one in the car, though, that had to hold it for the whole fucking traffic jam because I was the only girl in the car. But, yeah.
Well, strictly speaking, you didn't have to, but it's probably...
You gotta get one of those shiwis.
Yeah.
Right? My eyeballs were floating by the time we got across that bridge.
Brett Goff says my deer blind looks like a piss bottle factory.
You're clearly a felon to be.
Oh my God.
No good. Making.
So my brother-in-law, I'm not going to say which one. I'm not going to name names, but when he was younger, he was so fucking lazy, too lazy to leave his room and go to the bathroom. So he would piss on the radiator because it would just evaporate the second it hit it.
But
he would just piss on the radiator in his room.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing that smells infinitely better as a potpourri than just urine, it's hot urine.
Right? Oh
yeah.
my God.
Oh.
I'm pretty close to throwing up right now. We should talk about something else.
You know, and the other thing too, so with the guys carrying the key, remember, they use urine, and they used to use urine to set dye into clothes all the time. So
mordant, right? Because of the high
theoretically, maybe they're using it to maybe they're just really into traditional clothing making. Maybe there's infinite number of things that they might be doing with that urine. There is no physical way you can actually say definitively that they intended to commit any kind of fraud with it.
Right.
Yeah. You have to catch them in the act.
That would be the only way. Otherwise it's a thought crime, right? It's
exactly
the same logic that gun grabbers use,
it's not even a thought crime because they didn't even say we were thinking of using it for this. It is an assumed thought crime.
It's assumed guilt, which is
like
goes
they're
against
just
the entire
assuming
legal
that's what
system.
they were. I mean, how do you arrest somebody for that? We're assuming that you're thinking of doing this with this innocuous thing in your car. Therefore, you're in violation of the law. How does that fucking even work?
Like the legal system used to work that you were innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah,
you know
not anymore, obviously.
I mean,
nowadays it doesn't even have to be a human
probably
being.
Since like 9/11.
They can fucking declare your property guilty until proven innocent these days. So it doesn't even have to be a person.
Declare your property theirs, even if you are proven innocent. So
yeah, well, I'm talking about civil asset forfeiture. They can declare the property guilty.
Yeah.
And then you have to prove that it's innocent.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes it even more difficult to win cases like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
'Cause it's like the state against the inanimate object.
Yeah, the burden of proof is on you. How does that
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
fucking work?
but even if in a lot of states and things, even if you wind up being innocent, you still can wind up having things seized. Like they don't even have to prove that you were actually guilty. They can just take it. And
Yeah.
say,
Right.
well, this is probably
And
used for crime.
Right, because
and
the charge is
that's
against the property,
yeah.
not against you.
And that's assuming you even have the means in order to go
fight.
to court to
Right.
fight.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, that's the whole thing. They figure that you're not gonna even bother.
Mhm.
I mean, what is it? 2015, 2014?
Yeah.
The DEA alone seized more assets through civil asset forfeiture than all the burglars and robberies in the United States combined.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, just call it what it is. It's legal theft.
It's
plunder.
absolutely-
It's plunder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it is plunder because it's all about rating at that point, because it becomes about, for policing, it's still policing for profit. It's if I can make it seem enough like these guys might be guilty of something, then I can take their stuff, which is valuable, turn around and sell it at an auction and make a bunch of money.
I don't even have to make it seem like the guys are guilty. All I have to say is I have a suspicion that this property was used in the commission of a crime.
For instance, some guy
all
could be
they need.
driving from one state to another with cash in the car because he's going to buy a car.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Or whatever.
Or some
And
like
they
me,
use the cash because they're
or
like,
he's
"Oh, you have
moving.
thousands of dollars of cash on you." Like, you
Like
know what
me-
I mean?
like
What are
me,
you
I
gonna going to buy drugs?
yeah, like
know?
me, I don't have a bank account. I don't
Yeah.
I don't like banks. I don't like to be tracked like that. So I deal solely in cash. Right. So they could pull me over and say, "Oh, well, you don't have any paychecks, you don't have a bank account, blah 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 blah." Well, there's nothing to prove that this is your money, nothing to prove that it came from, nothing to prove that it's actually
Nothing
yours.
to prove that it's mine. It's in my possession.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's almost like you're like guilty of something if you're carrying over a certain amount of cash on you. Like, why would
They
you do that?
suspect you anyways, and that's all they need to take.
Yeah, well, remember there was that girl in Florida who was that stripper or whatever who had all that money seized. There was that guy who was on his way to go put a down payment on a house in cash that got pulled over, and they seized like $40,000 from him.
Yeah.
And it took him forever and more than $40,000 to get his $40,000 back. Like, and he just kept fighting it just on the principle of the idea, because he's like, this is insane. And you can just take people's life savings based on nothing more than, well, you have an awful lot of cash on you. Well,
Exactly.
a whole lot of cash constitutes a crime.
Well, they can play that angle in the digital age with, like, people using bank cards and stuff for everything, So now it's like, if you have cash, like, what are you using cash for?
Yeah,
Because
right. If
only
you're
only illegal stuff is done with cash.
Right.
You know.
They just assume that if you don't want to leave a paper trail, it's because you're doing something.
That's what they said about Bitcoin originally, and now the government is looking into cryptocurrencies and blockchain technologies and
and then once they do that, then when you have cash on you, they're going to be like, it's only being used for something like buying drugs, because people are going to want to stay off the radar in terms of that market, because you're not going to want to be, well, I don't know, it's not Bitcoin and stuff like that isn't traceable, is it?
Well,
it is.
technically it's not
It is.
supposed to.
Bitcoin is traceable because of all the transactions, because each Bitcoin and each bit hash has a unique serial number, because there's only a fixed amount of Bitcoin.
Yeah. It's like the same thing as like a dollar serial number.
Yeah, and each transition each transaction is recorded on the blockchain, so you could theoretically actually follow the money in terms of Bitcoin.
Just because the crypto wars are kind of dying out doesn't mean they're actually over, and there's going to be another battle down the road, and it's as soon as they figure out that how to get that technology to work quickly and reliably.
Brett Goff says another big reason for authorities to dislike cash is the possibility of tax evasion.
Yep.
Literally why I do it. Cryptocurrency, like JP Morgan just came out with its own cryptocurrency. Like
surprise.
JP coin is a thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Surprise, surprise.
because of course JP Morgan would never ever do anything untoward.
Yeah, they'd never do anything unscrupulous.
No,
never.
because it's not like their literal actual founder was the major backer of Thomas Edison and a world-class piece of shit or anything.
Yeah.
Do you know that he bailed? He was supposed to be like the whatever the guest of honor on the Titanic because he like commissioned the ship, and then he bailed the last minute.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that was fortuitous.
Yeah, and like the who was it? Guggenheim, Astor, and somebody else were on the boat, and they all opposed the Federal Reserve.
Yep, John Jacob Astor was a pretty vocal opponent of it. And his wife was also there. His young wife, she was actually pregnant. She lost the baby on board. One of my ancestors actually was a cellist on the Titanic.
Oh,
No shit.
Yeah, he was actually the first chair cellist on the Titanic, and it was his last voyage that he was going to do on a ship because he was engaged. And was going to stop doing, because he had worked professionally. Ironically, get this, so this is a great story. He actually was also on the Lusitania.
No shit, dude.
Before the Titanic. And his stateroom, he was playing cards with another guy from the band, and they were just aft of where the impact damaged to. And the impact jarred them, but they were in the middle of an intense hand and didn't want to stop, so they just went back to playing.
Good Lord.
That's like that one Japanese dude. He was like, I think in Hiroshima, whichever city got bombed. Yeah, he got whatever one got bombed first. He was in that one, and then got on the train to go to work, and ended up in the city that got bombed second.
Jeez.
Yeah, there's a documentary about
Netflix
right now.
Yeah,
or like a docudrama where it like does documentary stuff and then dramatic recreations of it and shit. I don't know. At that point, dude, like, do you just off yourself? Like, I mean,
right? Like,
no, you've got it all wrong. It's all about your. At that point, you go buy a fucking lottery ticket if you survive.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
All right. Former police chief says conviction requirement for forfeitures makes it too hard to take cash from people.
Yeah. Too hard to take.
It makes it so hard for me to steal from people.
You guys, that's the same reason they want gun control. Guns make it too hard to control the people.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Literally the entire point.
Yes.
One of the worst offenses of civil asset forfeiture has been penned by retired police Chief Robert Stevenson for the Michigan news site The Bridge. It's written in response to two things: pending forfeiture reform bills in the state legislature and Supreme Court's Timms decision, which indicated forfeitures may fall on the wrong side of the 8th and 14th Amendments.
Oh, they may.
Yeah. Michigan definitely needs to overhaul its forfeiture laws. Law enforcement claims it's dismantling drug cartels, but if you look at the state's forfeiture stats show cops are just piling up lowball seizures to create a sizable, impressive total. Cash seizures are routinely below $1,000. Vehicle seizures are also popular with Michigan cops, but the average value of vehicles taken from alleged drug dealers also falls below $1,000.
Jeez. So they're not drug dealers.
They're just small-time hustlers. It's the tiny seizures, the ones not worth fighting in court, that the state's legislature is trying to curb. It's hoping to implement a conviction requirement for any forfeiture under $50,000. Chief Stevenson says this.
Why isn't there a conviction requirement for all forfeitures? Like you have to have a conviction within 18 months or the person automatically gets their shit back.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Chief Stevenson says this would let drug dealers win. Beyond using some florid language to flesh out a tiny parade of horribles, Stevenson cannot actually say why this conviction requirement would harm drug enforcement efforts. He tries, Lord, how he tries. But there's nothing coherent in the defense of cops taking property from citizens just because. First, Stevenson argues that cops should be able to take money they feel deeply in their hearts is derived from drug dealing, even if they can't find any evidence linking a person carrying it to a crime.
So feels. So
Yeah.
feels.
Yeah.
It's totally subjective and based on one person's fucking feelings.
You know what this reminds me of is Obama complaining about the fact that he couldn't alter the Second Amendment because the founders made it too hard.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they decided that freedom might be more important than.
There's kind of a reason that they did that. Like, I don't think people understand how exacting a gentleman's education was back in those days. These men, they did not put anything on any.
Oh, Derica.
Uh-oh.
Are you there?
Can you guys hear me?
Oh,
Hear you now.
here you go.
No?
Oh,
You are.
Oh,
You were frozen
All
for a
right.
few seconds.
Yes, so start back off where you were saying about their education.
yeah. So back then, a gentleman's education was an extremely exacting thing. I mean, these guys were, a lot of them were the type of guys who had private tutors, you know, and that's how they grew up. And their entire education was based on the old classical education models, not like today's Prussian education models.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, these kids were doing calculus by the time they were 13 and 14 years old. It was just
they all
expected
knew like
of them.
Latin
And right,
all that shit.
yeah. And they got logic and rhetoric and argumentation, like and all of they were classically trained in all of this. So several of them were, especially the ones who were, you know, writing these documents.
Jefferson was like, dude wrote his own Bible.
Right. And so these men,
but yeah.
You know, and writing was expensive. The materials were expensive, and there weren't like do-overs. You had to start a whole new thing if you screwed up. These men were accustomed to very carefully thinking and debating everything before they put it on paper. So if you think it's an accident, the way that they worded any fucking thing, think again.
Yeah.
Because none of that shit is accidental.
When they said like a well-regulated militia, what they meant by that was like because there was a difference.
Well trained and
well maintained. It's regulated
well-maintained.
Was the 18th century equivalent of well maintained now.
Right.
Yeah. Like, well, they said that the difference between was like they had like better sights and everything on the military grade weapons back then, and like that's what like the terminology meant back for, like, you know, the arms back in the day. Like their terminology was like different than what we would understand as regulated.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a really good book out there. Give me just a second. I can actually point you to it. I was looking for it, but there is a really good book on that specifically. That particular issue, like that wording of it. Let me find it. Unfortunately, it's also really expensive.
Of course.
But for the defense of themselves and the state, the original intent, judicial interpretation of the right to keep and bear arms. It's Clayton E. Kramer. If you want it, it'll run you about $94.
Holy shit!
Yeah, when I said it's expensive, I mean expensive.
What is like a law book?
It's a kind of. It's the guy Kramer is a pretty well-known constitutional scholar and lawyer.
So it's kind of like a dissertation.
Yeah, it's his postdoctoral dissertation on it.
Oh, okay.
It covers in extreme detail with sources noted what these guys were, you know, said in other sources, you know, when because there was, like, keep in mind, it's not like the Constitution being debated and the wording being debated and things happened in a vacuum. These guys were writing letters to newspapers. They were publishing under pseudonyms constantly. They were doing all these things.
They were writing to each other. There were constantly letters going back and forth between each other. And
yeah,
so there was like meetings happening
based on what else they said.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to the article. This is quoting Stevens quoting Stevens now. He says, law enforcement will be severely handicapped if state lawmakers succumb to the misconception that no forfeiture should take place without a conviction on the proceeds under $50,000. It is a dramatic misunderstanding that the conviction can be obtained in all drug cases. Drugs and proceeds are not always discovered together, which makes obtaining criminal convictions in certain incidences impossible. Linking civil asset forfeiture to a criminal conviction allows drug dealers to continue profiting from dealing death in our communities.
We'll talk about appeal to emotion.
Good Lord. No kidding.
So they're not even figuratively saying, they're literally saying, if you don't let us steal from people, people will die.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Hold on. This article, this last paragraph, I'm going to read. This is tech dirt now. In the eyes of LEOs like Stevenson, cash being carried by people stopped by officers can only be the product of illegal activity. It is simply inconceivable anyone would carry cash in this day and age, apparently. That's
bullshit. We've already established that that's bullshit.
Steven actually states that quote, people carrying cash are legally obligated to explain its origin to the cops.
No, we're fucking not.
Yeah.
No, they're legal. If you have over $3,000, you are legally obligated to mention to the IRS that you have it. And if you withdraw more than $11,000, you're legally obligated to explain to the IRS where it came from.
Right. But your local cops, that's not their fucking business.
Yeah, but there's no law that says you have to tell them where it came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
here's the thing. Laws, the whole mindset about this is flipped around the wrong way. Okay? Cops are looking at this like you can't make the laws that restrain us. Right. Well, they're saying you can't make this law that restrains us. And the citizens who still remember what it was supposed to be are saying, no, laws are supposed to be about the things you're allowed to do. If it's not a law allowing you to do it, you can't fucking do that to us. That's the way it was supposed to be.
It's about restraints on government.
Right. But it's been flipped around to just assume they can do anything unless there's a law specifically telling them that they can't.
Well, and that flip,
it's about them imposing on us instead of it being imposed on them.
Right.
It started really. You started seeing that flip in just after the Civil War.
Yeah, I was just going to say
federal
that.
power grab really started to get extreme, and then you saw it excel.
The reconstruction and the occupation of the South after the Civil War, like that was super detrimental.
Wasn't it like the Act of 1871 or something? Like made the Constitution null and void, or am I getting that wrong? Like it reworded it or something.
It's been void since the beginning.
Well, basically, as soon as it became inconvenient, it was void, and it was referenced repeatedly by, like Southern fire eaters and stuff in antebellum U.S. But the right after the Civil War ends and the federal government has proven their absolute supremacy through force, now things start to change, and then when you hit the Prohibition era, and then you start seeing like the NFA and the GCA happen, and you start seeing all these moves to consolidate more and more power. You start really
in the post 9/11 world, especially, it's gotten super.
Hyperdrive.
Prohibition, that really was the genesis, because that's where you start seeing people having to prove their innocence. If they have stuff that could be used to distill alcohol, they now suddenly have to prove that isn't why they have it. And that's where you start to really see that shift away from guilty until proven innocent to guilty kind of period.
Right.
Yeah. And this perfect segue. This was a late addition to the lineup. Minneapolis to ban warrior training for police, mayor says.
Hooray.
Minneapolis police officers will no longer be permitted to participate in, quote, warrior-style training, even on their own time. Mayor Jacob Fry announced he will ban this popular training style in the state of the city, addressed Thursday, saying he believes this will make Minneapolis the first city in the country to do so, according to a prepared version of his remarks. Warrior training, which teaches officers to perceive threats all around them, came under scrutiny in the Twin Cities after revelations that Geronimo Yanez, the former St. Anthony officer who shot and killed Philando Castillo during a routine traffic stop in 2016, had taken classes on it. Nationally, critics say this school of policing creates a higher likelihood for an unnecessary force encounter with the Republic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quote, Chief Madera's MPD, that's Minneapolis Police Department, rests on trust, accountability, and professional service. Whereas fear-based warrior-style trainings like Killology are in the direct conflict with everything that our chief and I stand for in our police department. Fear-based training violates the values at the very heart of community policing. When you're conditioned to believe that every person encountered poses a threat to your existence, you simply cannot be expected to build meaningful relationships with those same people.
That's like a fancy way of saying when you become a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Fry also said the policy will go into effect right away.
There's also police departments that are no longer doing training in Israel either.
Well, and don't forget, I mean, that the impetus for this, Philando Castile was a legally armed school janitor who was being told to get his gun out and to get his wallet, and was in the process of doing that when he was fired on for doing exactly what he was told to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because he moved, and he wasn't even, and keep in mind, in Minnesota, you're not even actually legally obligated, if you're a licensed concealed carrier, to notify the police that you have a weapon. You're under no legal obligation to do so. So he didn't even have to mention it, but he felt the need to try and make the cop feel more at ease, to just warn him, hey, so that you know, there's a gun here. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Like, I'm just going for my wallet. And that was all he was trying to do. And then he gets shot because this guy had just taken training that told him everyone's trying to kill you all the time, and you need to be this warrior, and we got to kill everyone. Like, the guys who do that training, unfortunately, are guys like me. They're the ones who do that training, and they're coming off of combat. They're coming off of combat zones, and they're teaching these guys to consider everyone a threat from a military perspective.
Well, yeah, there's a huge difference between being a defensive force, which the police are supposed to be, and being a
offensive force.
Being an offensive force. And that's what this training teaches them. They teach them to be offensive, to be aggressive, to escalation of violence.
Right.
Whereas police training, being defensive in nature, is supposed to be about de-escalation of force.
Exactly.
Making the situation less dangerous.
What we need in America is we need more Barney Fife and less John McClane. As much as I love John McClane.
Barney Fife was the cops that we have today.
Yeah, he was. That's why he wasn't allowed to have his bullet.
Okay, Andy Griffith.
Yeah, we need Andy Griffith.
Andy Griffith. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, I mean, and having been to a few of those trainings, because I've been to a few of them, they absolutely, like, one of the names of one of them was tactical aggression of force.
There you go.
And the idea was that the general idea of that training was, if they're acting aggressively, draw your weapon and escalate immediately to a deadly confrontation, because 9 times out of 10 they're going to go ahead and back down.
Yeah, that's what the training is about. It's about escalation of violence, right? It's about, or not escalation. It's about violence of action. And if somebody is doing something you don't agree with, or something that they're not following your direction, you're taught to act aggressively in defense of yourself.
Yeah,
yeah,
or
and intimidate.
It's not even if they're not following your directions. I mean, if they misunderstood and you need to repeat in a quieter voice so they can actually hear what you're saying. Or, I mean, it's not a game of fucking Simon Says. They don't have like half a second to follow your fucking directives or they lose. I mean,
Yeah, people are under a lot of fucking stress at that point.
They're under a lot of stress. Most people aren't like military trained, so they're not used to like snapping to it orders like that, you know? I mean, you can't expect from civilians, you can't expect them to follow your directions under
that's where that question arises that became such a popular meme, and I think still has so much bearing. Why is it that a trained, educated police officer is allowed to act out of panic and fear in a confrontation, but the average citizen who has no such training is expected to act perfectly
with a gun pointed in their face?
Yeah. Like if there's a gun pointing at me, like I have that training. If there's a gun pointed at me, I ain't gonna lie, my heart rate's up, man.
Yeah.
Like I'm panicking a little bit because there's a gun pointed at me.
And I don't fucking know the person on the other end of it. All I know about them these days is that they're likely to see me as a threat to their life. And that doesn't give me any fucking comfort on the wrong end of that gun barrel.
Well, when you're coming from that kind of position of like I don't know, like, you know, you're viewing the American public as your enemy. It's no way to operate at all. Like,
no.
If these are the people that are employing you, first of all, you should. I mean, if there was accountability and they could be fired, you'd be losing your fucking jobs.
Yeah, well,
straight up.
That's the issue here is that it's become a culture of violence. It's become the police culture, the culture of being a police officer.
Us versus them. Circle the wagons, thin blue line.
The thin blue line. It's become through this type of training, through the people that are training them, former IDF, former special forces, that sort of thing, the aggressive tactics of it. They're training them to be a paramilitary, with for lack of a better term.
Absolutely.
And they're starting to see themselves as warriors, as a warrior class, as it's almost
simultaneously.
And it's all on the grounds of counterterrorism.
And then at the same time, they're repeating these mantras like, "I just want to get home to my family at the end of the day."
So do I.
So does every fucking buddy else. What makes you so special?
Yeah,
maybe you shouldn't
be
doing a job that is now more dangerous than it was before because of how badly y'all have pissed everyone off.
Right.
SWAT team wears freaking multicam.
Like if your behavior is so shitty that you hate the people that fucking try and like correct your behavior, you know what I mean? It's time for little evaluation of yourself.
Well, yeah,
like they hate people, and like they kill cops that try to whistleblow on corruption within the department.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and that's the crazy thing is consider too that most of these guys that are coming back and then turning their military experience into a job, training other people, like Iron Harvest Tactical, self-plug. By trying to do that, right? We're all coming back from a place where our ROE, our rules of engagement, were 100,000 times stricter.
Yep.
In a war zone where little children occasionally carry mortars.
Right, regarding even enemy combatants, clear enemy combatants.
Yeah, our ROE was stricter than these cops are operating on against American people who they say we are here to protect and serve.
Yeah, your own fucking
how Orwellian is that?
Yeah. If that isn't double speak, man, I don't know what is.
Yeah, exactly.
Comments, he says militarized police forces. Wasn't that part of Agenda 21?
Yep. And Agenda 2030.
And this is the standing army the founders warned us about.
Yes.
Yeah, the idea that a police that the force exerting arm of the military would view the American people as a threat is actually supposed to be the reason that the Second Amendment exists. That's the impetus for the Second Amendment is a fear of exactly that.
And is it any surprise that the rise of this anti-Second Amendment rhetoric in the halls of Congress coincides with the militarization and force escalation tactics of the new American police departments? I mean, you think of the two of them coming to a head at the same time.
Giuliani said something about being in control of the world's 7th largest army.
Yeah.
In reference to the New York Police Department.
Yeah.
Yep. Well,
yeah, that's pretty insane.
And then
let's give them MRAPs. That'll help calm them down.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just gonna bring up. It's like, and then consider they're also giving them all of this military technology,
this old military gear. Yeah.
Yeah. M4s. What is a civilian police force doing with the 203?
Yeah, what are you gonna use that for?
Maybe
I would even give them the 37 millimeter, the flare and tear gas launchers. Yeah, I would at least give them that and say, okay, for crowd dispersion without actually having to legitimately hurt anybody, fine, that's what you're using.
Tear gas is good for that. I mean, it's always been used for that.
Okay, fine, but they're not carrying those. They're carrying true 40 mils.
40 mics, which is like, it's just.
Didn't FEMA purchase like 2 billion rounds or something a couple years ago?
Are they expecting those things from Tremors? You know, like the creatures.
Seriously.
Well, the FEMA purchased all those rounds. The DHS purchased like 3 billion rounds a couple of years ago.
Dude.
In fact, there was a bit there where federal agencies were purchasing so much ammunition that it got hard for those of us who shoot regularly to find a lot of factory ammunition.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
One of the things about. Sorry, go ahead, Dan. I was just going to say one of the things about DHS that a lot of people may not realize is that the Coast Guard falls under DHS now. Yes. So like they're offshore, like counter drug ops, you know, and they're intercepting these like cartel ships and stuff like that. I can see if you accept the government and all these agencies and stuff existing as a given, I can see why the Coast Guard would want some of those bigger rounds when they're out there, you know, meeting up with cartel shipments on container ships and things like that. I mean,
that shit's gonna be wild, dude.
Yeah. Oh. It really can get. People don't realize
it's like modern day
battle on the
shit.
high seas out
exactly.
there.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
gosh, it's almost like the drug war escalates violence.
Almost. Isn't that weird?
Wow. Holy segue, Batman. As black activists protest police killings, Homeland Security worried they might join ISIS.
Damn, we are good at segues. We are on the ball tonight.
We're just like,
if you didn't know better, you'd swear this was scripted. That's
smooth
it's almost like we had some kind of fucking plan. But we don't. We never really do.
No.
We just have a handful of headlines.
This is anarchy in action, man. Spontaneous
Hell
order.
Yeah.
Spontaneous order. Look at how beautifully it works out.
Yeah, as nationwide protests against police killings of black men began rolling across the country in 2014, federal and local law enforcement who were closely monitoring protesters' online activities reportedly expressed a bizarre concern that the mostly black activists demanding an end to police violence in the U.S. might join with Islamic fundamentalist groups promoting violence abroad. The concern was unequivocally baseless and had no evidence ever emerged to substantiate it. Still, documents obtained by the government transparency group Property of the People, which were shared exclusively with The Intercept, reveal that officials with the Department of Homeland Security and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence exaggerated the significance of isolated social media activity, mostly by foreign accounts, advocating for the connection between the domestic movement against police brutality and foreign terrorism.
What they were afraid of is their own tactics being used against them. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. They're worried about that being done to them, about, you know, somebody else double dealing the way that they do.
I could see a tie-in with like groups like Black Lives Matter because they were funded by Soros.
Yeah, well,
Islam has its history rooted in a hell of a lot of violence.
Yeah.
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 But he's like notorious for funding color revolutions and stuff through his NGOs. So it's like I don't know. It's possible that they could have made a tie in there somewhere. Maybe
But at the same time, like the ISIS is the great Jabberwocky, right?
Oh yeah, it totally is.
This great
But
thing
it's
everyone
government
wants
created.
to point to. It was Al Qaeda, and then now it's ISIS, and they got to have some mysterious evil force, this malevolent force that they can point to and go, oh God, we need more funding, and we need to do these surveillance things to spy on people, and we need to take this and do that because this scary thing that's out there, they got to come up with something. And because they didn't have any legitimate concerns about a bunch of black people being angry that they're murdering a bunch of black people, they had to come up with some sort of an excuse to make themselves the heroes again.
Right. And not only that, but they had to come up with some kind of justification for continued warrantless monitoring.
Well, yeah, that's what the article gets into. It says these official warnings: the U.S. activism against police violence might be exploited as a recruitment opportunity by foreign terrorist groups slightly precedes the FBI's designation of a quote black identity extremist domestic terrorism category, which essentially casts large numbers of the same black activists as potential homegrown violent extremists. They did that during the 80s and 90s with the militia movement, by the way. As The Intercept has reported, the FBI's, quote, black identity extremism label, while first used in 2017 threat assessment report, originated on the heels of the Ferguson protest, and the first individual the FBI designated as a, quote, black identity extremist was a young Ferguson protester the agency had entrapped. But just as there is no evidence that a, quote, black identity extremist ideology actually exists, there is also no evidence that the U.S. activists ever saw or in any way responded to the sporadic social media calls to join the foreign fundamental Islamic groups. If anything, critics say law enforcement's fixation on the non-existent connection is testimony to both their anti-black and anti-Muslim basis.
They're just terrified of the new iteration of the old version of Black Panthers is what it is. That's what they're afraid of.
Oh no, that guy is black and pissed off.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's ridiculous, man. Like,
and not just he's black and pissed off, but he's black and he's pissed off for a damn good reason.
Yeah.
At us.
He's righteously angry at the police because the police are kind of, murdering like random children and teenagers and innocent autistic men's caregivers in the middle of the street as they're trying to surrender. And
they're like the fucking like the pervert that runs the mutant orphanage in Deadpool 2. They know that fucking justice is coming for them in some way, or they're afraid that it is because they know that they've been doing wrong.
Yeah,
they know that people are pissed off about it.
Yeah, Brett Goff says it's not a radical idea. Think back to Malcolm X and the civil rights movement. Islam recruited many black Americans, which I agree with.
That was Nation of Islam. That was the reference.
And he says, however, there wouldn't be terrorists without Western actions in the Middle East, and there wouldn't be a black power movement without the actions of police and government.
Well, don't forget, like the Black Panthers, a lot of what gained them power was the fact that in general, because of Vietnam, which again is U.S. expansionism and interventionism, without the war in Vietnam, you wouldn't have had the recruiting and the drafting. And the draft, remember, during Vietnam, you could get out of it if you could go to college. If you were enrolled in college, you got out of the draft. Well, if I'm already from a poor inner city black family, statistically, I am not very likely to be in college, which meant that it was a bunch of rich old white men living in Washington, D.C. that decided on the war, and it was a bunch of poor black men from the Bronx fighting it.
Yep.
Right, because the rich men's sons were exempt because they were in college.
Yep. Yeah. And can we bring up the move bombing in Philadelphia?
Yeah.
But, hey, I just want to say,
after.
real quick.
Oh,
Dirka, you froze again.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say real quick about the whole ISIS thing is that like all that was created by different intelligence agencies like NATO and the typical characters within the axis of evil, I guess you would call it. Western powers that claim to be the good guys.
Yeah.
But
am I back, by the way?
Yeah, you're back.
I'm unfrozen. Okay. All right. I was just going to say that there would still be terrorists without American intervention in the Middle East. There were before the U.S. was a thing, and there will be after. But their focus wouldn't be on the U.S. if we were like the Taliban was the big fucking fish in that pond, and the Taliban is the most organized. It's like the core. Kind of like how people think of the Illuminati as being the core of the Freemasons. The Taliban was like the core of Islamic extremism, and they're the really well-funded, really well-organized. They're like the rock stars of Islamic extremism.
And they are rock stars. They're treated like rock stars in that world.
Yeah, and they wanted nothing to do with the United States. They did not want our attention. They wanted to leave us the fuck alone. They didn't want us in their business. And that's why when Al-Qaeda drew our attention, the Taliban was fucking pissed at Al-Qaeda. They were so mad at them. And they were so mad that they had to then pretend to support their actions because public opinion among, their target audience would have swung against them if they didn't. You know what I mean? But the Taliban wanted nothing to fucking do with that.
Well, the Taliban eradicated the opium trade out of Afghanistan. That was one of the big problems that the United States had with them.
I learned something the other day on. Oh, what was it? It was one of the School Sucks podcasts with Brett Venant. And they were talking about opium in Afghanistan and why opium is still so prevalent there. And it's because there is a federal law. There's a federal law on the books that the U.S. cannot give financial aid to farmers in another country that have a competitive crop with the United States. So, like Afghanistan would be perfect for like cotton or wheat, right? But that would compete with U.S. farmers, so the U.S. wouldn't be able to spend the money there. So now they have to grow opium.
Something that we can't grow in the U.S.
Something that we can't grow in the U.S.
Ignoring the fact that they can grow blood oranges in the Middle East, and we don't do that so much here. And you ever had a blood orange from the Middle East? Sweet Jesus.
Delicious.
That's like you're like opium. Who gives a shit about opium? If you had these fucking things, oh my god, like, they're so good when they're like fresh. And outside fobs, there's like always kids selling them, like just these huge piles of fresh blood.
But Jason has a really good point that the more the government interferes with and tinkers with the fucking market, the more wide-reaching the consequences of that interference are. And these legislators, they don't know dick about the fucking ripples that their stupid shit is going to cause. All they care about is that one demographic that they're trying to hit. Mm-hmm. That's all they give a fuck about is the votes they can buy with this legislation. They don't care.
It's not even necessarily the votes. It's about the financial backing behind their pet issue.
Right.
Or
okay. Well, same thing. The support, the political,
the lobbyist dollars.
Right. They're trading legislation for political currency, and that's all they give a damn about. And they don't care about the far-reaching consequences. How their bullshit is going to affect people on the other side of the fucking planet.
Yeah.
You know how it's going to keep nations in poverty and oppression, and how it's going to prevent them from making anything of themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Keeping them in poverty and oppression was the entire point of Sykes-Picot at the end of World War I. That was the entire the divide and conquer mentality. Was the way that we keep, because there was such a fear after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire that if they had kept their word and given the Arabs their own nation, united, that the Arab world would become directly competitive with the white Western world, and they could not let that happen. they knew that the way that you kept the people in the area down was divide and conquer from Africa. You know?
Yeah, but what they forgot to factor in is the more.
Oh, lost Eric again.
Lost her again. But I was just gonna bring up. We talked about it last time with the IMF and how the U.S. uses the IMF as a weapon of war. We talked about it with the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Right, the economics is a great way to keep people oppressed. You keep people poor, you keep them separated. You tell the pitchfork having people that the torch having people want to take away their pitchforks, and you keep the poor people fighting each other instead of being able to any sort of advancement.
Well, it's like anymore. It's like class warfare. It's like sexual orientation warfare, gender
identity
warfare.
politics.
It's politics. On every level, dude.
Yep. That's intersectionalism.
If you like that scene in Ants, if you haven't seen Ants with or not Ants, is it A Bug's Life? I think it might be A Bug's Life. With remember, there's way more of them than there is of us, which means if they ever figure that out and unite, we're in a bunch of trouble.
Exactly.
I think that's Ants. Isn't that Ants?
That might be. I can't remember if it's Ants or if it's A Bug's Life.
I think it's A Bug's Life.
I think it's A Bug's Life. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but one of the I don't know. They came out like back to back, and I watched them both. And
and they have kind of similar themes, and
and it's the one has is much. I mean, and the funny thing is actually if you watch those from an anarchist perspective, they're both really anti-government, anti-military industrial complex, anti-control. Like they actually have some deep messages, just kind of subtly stuck in there.
So does the Lego movie. I mean, in the Lego movie, it's not even all that subtle in a lot of places.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's about control and rejecting control, but that point of there's a lot more of them than there is of us, and if they figure that out, we're in trouble. That is a real thing. Like they know there are way more of the average person than there are people in power, and if we figure that out and we can unite, they lose.
They're fucking done.
Possibly win.
And if we get through to their enforcers with the idea that without enforcers, evil on this scale couldn't be done, if the enforcers just stopped following orders.
Opportunity to read my meme.
Oh, yeah. But that is the most dangerous idea. They don't want their enforcers realizing that.
Let's see.
It's dangerous to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry I keep freezing. Our Wi-Fi is being a dick today. Sorry,
the meme it says, I really hate it when people try to justify their immoral and illegal action by saying I'm just doing my job. If you don't like it, blame the lawmakers. But the truth is, without your compliance, the laws they make without enforcing them, Washington would be an issue. It would just be a group of people in suits, circle jerking, dreaming of taking away our freedoms and rights and writing it down on paper.
Yep.
Right? It's like the whole thing that I've brought up multiple times. Remember, without the SS, without the Gestapo, without the Abwehr, Hitler is just a screaming, mad, failed artist in a beer hall in Munich.
Right.
Yes.
Without the cops, legislation isn't even useful as toilet paper. I mean, without them, it's worth less than toilet paper.
Yep.
So
another perfect segue, Derica. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Pregnant mom who was cited for toddler urinating in the parking lot could go to trial after the case isn't dropped.
Now you gotta wonder what kind of fucking cop made an issue of this to begin with, because that's where it always starts.
Yes.
I mean, other citizens can complain and they can call people and complain. But if the people they call and complain to happen to have special uniforms and special badges, and those people also decide to take issue with it, that's where the problem begins. So what kind of fucking cop takes issue with a pregnant mother allowing her toddler son to go pee in a parking lot? Do you know how hard it is to potty train boys? Everybody who's potty trained a boy, raise your hand. Right? It is not fucking easy to potty train boys.
I have nothing to do.
So, So the ticket wasn't dropped, so they're probably going to go to trial. But going back to the original incident, a 3-year-old who had to go potty, so he went in a gas station parking lot. That's when a deputy cited his mom for disorderly conduct.
Fuck.
Yeah, potty training can be a stressful time for any parent, but what happened to a beach island woman with a 3-year-old is next level stress. Let's talk about little Cohen Johns. Cohen is about to be a big brother. His sister is due next month. The lady's like 37 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, heavily pregnant.
She's ready to hop.
And his mother, Brooke Johns, had been told to take it easy. And he's heavy, Brooke said of Cohen. Last week, Brooke was driving down Sandbar Ferry Road when a little voice in the backseat said he had a big problem. He's like, Mom, I have got to pee. I have got to pee. I was like, well, hold on. And he's like, no, I've got to pee.
Yes. And if you potty train, right. And here's the point. Yeah. When you're potty training boys, they don't give you warning.
No,
they tell you the second they need to pee.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I've got to pee. I've got to really pee. And I'm like, baby, there's nowhere for me to go. And he's like, Mama, I'm about to pee in my pants.
They don't say anything until it's a fucking emergency.
Yep. It's like toddlers are just tiny drunk adults.
Yeah.
Brooke said they barely made it into the gas station parking lot before she realized they wouldn't be able to make it inside. Quote, I can't pick him up, Brooke said. I'm not supposed to lift him. So Brooke said she tried to cover Cohen up as best she could while he relieved himself right there in the parking lot. Quote, he was peeing his pants. He was peeing before his pants were even all the way down. So obviously he had to go.
Yeah, like I said, it's always an emergency.
Apparently this caught the attention of a Richmond County deputy. Quote, accidents happen. And he was like, take him into the bathroom. What if I would have ran into the bathroom and someone had been in there? What was I going to do? Pee on the floor of the gas station, Brooke said.
Right.
Instead, the deputy decided to cite Brooke with a disorderly conduct charge. Her ticket says, quote, she allowed her male child to urinate in a parking lot. I observed the male's genitalia and the urination. Public restrooms are offered at the location. Yeah. So she has to go to court April 30th, which is several days before she is due. Yeah.
That toddler had a potty emergency.
Yeah.
Like, are you fucking kidding me? Seriously? Like, no, you know what, though? He didn't give her a ticket because the kid was peeing outside. He gave her a ticket because she refused to respect his authority.
Yeah, disorderly conduct. Like,
yeah.
That's why.
Like, of all the arbitrary things.
I can't tell you how many times when I was potty training boys, they pissed on the back tire of my car because there were no other bathrooms around. You can't just like stay in your home for months while you're potty training. It doesn't work that way.
You can't even argue that this was at the behest of the public or anything, because you know what? I'm a member of the public. You're all members of the public. If you saw some toddler kid peeing against the side of a car, would you say anything or would you laugh and be like, ah?
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's obvious that it's the mom's car and he's not peeing on someone else's car.
Yeah. Who the hell cares? It's a toddler. Man,
did that, little buddy.
Yeah, like at most, you're gonna get a chuckle out of people who see it. Apparently, unless they're wearing a shiny piece of metal on their chest and decide to go on a fucking power trip on a heavily pregnant woman because they're that level of scum.
Yeah, she pled not guilty, and her attorney asked for a bench trial because apparently there is body cam footage from the incident.
Yeah. There's nothing disorderly about that. What you saw was an emergency situation. A parent handling a bathroom emergency the best they could without a big mess being made. It's a fucking parking lot. Next time it rains, it'll be clean. But if it means that much to you, I'll come back with a 5-gallon bucket of water and I'll fucking rinse the spot off. End of fucking story.
It's even less than that. It's a 3-year-old kid. So what's he got in his system? What, juice and Cheez-It?
Yeah,
really.
Right?
Yeah, unless she's been feeding him nothing but asparagus, I don't think you really have to worry that much.
Yeah, and you're talking maybe an ounce of pee. I mean, little kids, they can't hold much, right?
Oh, yeah, and it's, I mean, and you think about too is like,
what happened to being like understanding?
Yeah, It's and that's the thing is
like if it was some grown ass man, like some bum, like San Francisco, and they're peeing on the sidewalk. Well, San Francisco wouldn't care, but South Carolina, if it's some bum peeing on the side of the building, okay, right? He's a grown man, right? Like you can make an argument for some sort of, all right, that's not cool, blah 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 blah, right? But it's a
or even just saying you're gonna fucking clean that up.
It's a 3-year-old kid, and the mom is 37 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
Like, what's she gonna carry her little 30-pound kid, waddle into the gas station, and say, "Can I use your bathroom?" When he's literally already peeing his pants.
And do you know how hard it is to hold a child that size when your belly is that fucking big?
She's not even supposed to be holding that much weight.
Let alone how much you should be carrying. Logistically, there's no comfortable way to do it. I mean, the kid's legs don't fit around your waist at that point. You can't hold them in front of you. I mean, it's really tough.
You're gonna get peed on. You're gonna get peed on if you try to carry that kid.
Yeah, because you're gonna put pressure on his freaking bladder, and he's just gonna pee.
And if you're carrying him, worse than that, you're gonna pee yourself.
Yeah, that's what I was just
too.
Yeah. Chances are you're gonna put pressure on your stomach. It's gonna
and
put you and you're gonna pee yourself too.
And that lawyer should have asked for a jury trial, because you put a woman that heavily pregnant and her toddler in front of any jury in the United States and go, does this one need to be put? Here's what happened.
Like
and demand a jury of her peers. Demand that there be women, other mothers on that fucking jury.
Yeah, because every single one of them is going to be like, there's no way this woman should be punished for this. This shouldn't have even been.
Every one of them is going to be like, that cop doesn't fucking deserve his badge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I hope they go to a jury trial. I just want to see the defense lawyer go at this cop.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I think and that's really something that people need to do more, is every single person, when it's bullshit like this, needs to go to a jury trial so that it drags out. It's expensive for the state. It's a really obnoxious thing. And
it's a really easy charge to beat in front of a jury.
It's a really easy charge to beat, and you know that you're going to beat it, and you know that all these jurors are going to come out so pissed off, tell all of their friends, who are going to tell all of their friends. Apply the principles of customer service, right? The principle of customer service is, if one person has a good experience, they're probably not going to tell anybody, but if they have a bad experience, they're going to tell on average 12.
They're going to tell everybody.
Right, and it's on average 12 people who are then on average going to tell another 12 people, and exponentially more people hear about it. So if you can get to the point where more and more and more and more people are hearing of these horrible, stupid things that people are pulling in the name of, well, my authority, then they're going to start really speaking out. You're going to spread this idea that cops need to be put in fucking check.
And in the name of magic ink on paper. I mean, that's the thing that people need to stop fucking believing in. It's just some fucking bureaucrat's opinion written down on paper. For God's sake. It's not, it doesn't have the force of morality behind it. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And let's, I mean, we could even get into the aspect, this quote, disorderly conduct charge, quote unquote.
Yeah.
That is an entirely subjective charge.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your definition of order? My definition of order is little kids not having to pee their fucking pants because the grown-ups around them are understanding of their struggle to potty train. To me, that is order. Why don't you fucking define what order is?
Yeah.
And we'll decide which of us was acting in a disorderly way.
Yeah, and that's exactly, that was something else I was going to bring up, is like, I have a disorderly conduct charge. And
I'm sure you do. That doesn't surprise me at all.
I know everyone has actually that knows me. They're like, oh, you know. Yeah.
Not Andrew. Say it out.
Yeah, they did a shotgun approach with that one too, but I was able to basically just, after 18 months of them delaying my trial because they didn't have any evidence of any actual wrongdoing whatsoever, I had to get my life back on. Pled to disorderly conduct and dissuade from reporting, which is, dude, you don't need to call the cops. That's dissuade from reporting right there. That's a misdemeanor. The disorderly conduct, the number of people that I've had, like employers, prospective landlords and things that have seen that and been like, and they'll ask me like, well, do you have any charges on your record? Well, yeah, I got disorderly conduct from almost like 10 years ago. Like, oh man, everybody's got a disorderly conduct. Everybody gets those. That happens all the time. And like, everyone understands that it's a bullshit charge where they're just like, I don't like your attitude, and they don't have a better charge to come up with.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Or it's like in other states they call it breach of peace.
Yeah.
Breach of peace. I was being loud, so I breached the peace. Like
in the UCMJ, they call it conduct unbecoming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you
It's
can
the catch-all.
Yeah, you can get a conduct unbecoming because, I was really drunk and I got into a loud argument with somebody outside the barracks at 3 a.m. that woke exactly one wrong Blue Falcon up.
Right.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
And that gets you conduct unbecoming. Hey, congratulations. Here's an Article 15. See you later.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, balls. Like, it's just she's pregnant, man. She's pregnant and it's a toddler.
37 weeks pregnant with a 3-year-old. Yeah. Like,
you can tell that dude probably doesn't get a date very often, let alone is he married or has kids or anything else.
He definitely didn't have
Gets
kids.
pussy at all.
That dude's like Lassiter in the early seasons of Psych, you know?
He's probably, my guess is that dude's probably a fucking incel. He's probably an incel, and he wears fedoras on the weekend, and he's just like, oh, these women, oh, she's pregnant, she's a roasty.
Yeah.
And so he just hates her immediately because she got to have sex and he doesn't. And then this is his revenge.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. Yeah. I think the incel type, like that type of psyche that gives rise to that, I think people like that are drawn to positions of, you know, state power, like, you know, cops, where they can demand that people respect
because that like position of authority like makes up for their incompetence or like, you know, their insecurities.
Well, yeah,
and they just like having the ability to shut people down and demand their respect.
Yeah, gee, were you? I mean, can you imagine an honest police recruiting poster? Like, were you bullied in high school?
Yeah.
Did people not ever take you seriously? Have you been stuffed in lockers? Well, now you too can use the state to exact your revenge against.
You want to flip that shoe to the other foot? Come on down to the police academy.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. And guess what? Are you also stupid? We want you even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Smarties need not apply.
IQ below 100? Sign right up.
Were you bullied? Not because you were too smart. Those people, you stay away. But
Yep. Speaking of that type of personality, quote, clearly a joke. White House explains why Trump's I love Wikileaks comments.
Nice segue, man.
Segue.
The recent arrest of Wikileaks publisher Julian Assange has put the White House in an awkward position of having to explain away U.S. President Donald Trump's previous praise for the whistleblowing website.
Now, I feel like I've heard this before. Like, you know, my kids get caught doing something, and they're like, "Oh, I was just joking.
Just a joke."
It's just a joke.
It turns out
it was just a joke. I didn't mean to punch him in the face.
It turns out all Trump's fanboying of WikiLeaks back in 2016 when they released Hillary Clinton's treasure trove of emails was just a joke. Now that Assange has been arrested and indicted in the U.S. for conspiracy to hack a government computer network in 2010, Trump's affection is gone. Quote, I know nothing about WikiLeaks. It's not my thing, he said dismissively earlier this week, leaving others to do the awkward explaining.
Typical. You get a little success and you forget the people that put you there.
Quote, look, clearly the president was making a joke during the 2016 campaign.
Clearly.
White House spokesman Sarah Sanders said about the sudden change of heart. She also assured Fox News that the Trump administration, quote, certainly takes the issue, quote, seriously now, and then quickly turned it into an attack on the Obama administration.
Who said that? Was it Sarah Sanders?
Sarah Sanders,
I'm trying to do my best Sarah Sanders face.
In fact, our administration is the only one to have done anything about it. We're the only ones that have taken the whole process seriously and actually doing something to solve the problem.
Oh, my God.
What? I have some sound
problem?
bites.
You guys getting busted being corrupt pieces of shit? Yeah, that's kind of a
Pretty
problem
much.
for
Yeah.
y'all.
So would you like to hear some sound bites?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's play some sound bites.
Like the Bernie Sanders race, where you won, but not fair and square, in my opinion. And all you have to do is take a look at WikiLeaks and just see what they said about Bernie Sanders and see what Deborah Wasserman Schultz had in mind.
This just came out. WikiLeaks. I love WikiLeaks. Even Chelsea Clinton, the WikiLeaks email show, expressed serious concerns about conflicts of interest at the Clinton Foundation and the State Department. And the mainstream media, which they control and use quite viciously. They want to distract us from WikiLeaks. It's been amazing what's coming out on WikiLeaks.
Yep.
That's just that actually goes on for more than a minute.
That's quite a stand-up routine. Like he was dedicated to that joke, telling it so often.
Gee, but it's not my thing. I don't know anything about him.
Wiki who?
Yeah, it was a joke. Clearly, it was a joke. Is that funny? I mean,
yeah. Trump cited WikiLeaks 141 times at 56 events in the last month of the campaign.
Jeez.
Oh yeah. Hang on.
Repeat Bernie, although it looked like Bernie got a little bit of a bad deal based on WikiLeaks, right? You look at WikiLeaks. Oh.
I mean, it was a joke, man. It was just a joke, and he didn't mean anything that he said.
How do they even try this anymore in the age where there is a recording of every sound they make during their campaigns? There's a fucking recording. It lives forever on the internet. How are you going to try to turn around and make it sound like something completely other than what it was? I mean, everybody can see that you're fucking lying. Why even bother these days? It's fucking boomers. It's gotta be. They just don't get the internet.
Oh, dude, my grandmother, although she's no fan of Trump, which makes me laugh hysterically. My hyper conservative, ultra right wing, Catholic Irish grandmother still hates Trump. She's to that point, but she doesn't pay any attention to it. And like the moment that I mention anything, like, well, but that's been announced, like everybody knows about that. Well, I don't know about that. Well, grandmother, that's because you only get your news from Fox News and literally no other sources. So
yeah.
November 4th, 2016, Wilmington, Ohio. Quote, getting off the plane, they were just announcing new WikiLeaks, and I wanted to stay there, but I didn't want to keep you waiting. Boy, I love reading those WikiLeaks. That was a quote from Trump.
You know what I've heard in certain circles on the internet is that the reason why they took Assange into custody is because they're going to use him to testify against Hillary Clinton and all these people they're going to go after that went after Trump. This is what I'm hearing from people, like their reasoning why they apprehended Assange, so that he can testify against all these people and take all these people down, and in return he'll be like pardoned or whatever.
Yeah, are those people also live on the beach in Arizona?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I understand the reasoning.
40-70 chess.
Yeah,
right.
it's this like now 443rd D chess.
Yeah,
and I understand that, but I mean, I understand the reasoning as far as like his deposition, if he actually has to see the inside of a courtroom, is going to be explosive, and
it's going to be binders full, like volumes and volumes. This would be the trial of the century, and it's only 2019. Exactly. I can't imagine a trial being more explosive than this.
It would be, except for it's going to probably be a FISA trial, which means it's sealed, it's not available to the public, and no one's ever going to see it.
I think honestly, if it does go to trial, it'll be a public trial, and they'll use it to cover the new to cover the news of the U.S. government's military actions in either Venezuela or Iran.
Yeah. That could
Oh
be
yeah, I
too.
see that. I can see that.
They'll use it to clog the
Yep.
fucking
Clog.
clog the airwaves.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. The thing is, and that brings up a good point. Like, if you really want real news, you need to start not even just looking at local news sources and United States, like normal news sources. Start pulling up the Associated Press Newswire, pull up Reuters Newswire. Start looking at
the aggregators that pull from all kinds of international sources.
Yeah, pull from everything. Check out Al Jazeera. I mean, Al Jazeera has a lot of downsides. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, it totally does. But
RT does some good work too.
You can pick a lot of information out of Al Jazeera.
Yeah, start trolling Camera Planet and what's the other one? Live Leak.
Zero Hedge.
Yeah, Zero Hedge. Like, start looking
Zero
at
Hedge, yeah.
And you're gonna get.
I've always been a fan
much
of Zero Hedge for sure.
Yeah, if you look at things from like all different angles, like what the press is covering, because I mean, if you only get your information from within the United States, it's an insulated bubble.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They pretty much keep everybody.
The media is so
blind to what's
controlled.
going on. Yeah, to the rest of what's going on in the rest of the world.
It's so scripted and it's so planned.
Well, remember that big thing that came out, that video series where it showed like 300 different news agencies that all said like a scripted thing of exactly the same thing, where you could actually cut between them and the sentence would continue.
Yeah,
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I just watched it again not long ago.
Yeah, that's
like Soviet level propaganda.
Well, that's what happens when like 95% of the U.S. media is controlled by 5 companies now?
Yeah, like five or 6.
No, it's 5. It's 5 now because Fox was bought by Disney.
Nice.
Right.
So yeah, it's 5 companies own 95% of the media, or the U.S. media. And all of them, I'm just saying, all of the heads sit on Bilderberg.
Yeah.
Every last one.
Take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, every last one.
Oh.
I mean, and you have some independent news agencies out there, like you have The Blaze, you have One America,
Daily Caller. Daily Caller is pretty conservative these days, though.
Yeah, well, and One America and The Blaze obviously are too. Like,
right. I mean, The Blaze is Glenn Beck's fucking network. For God's sake.
Well, Glenn Beck,
those are like.
I'll say for conservative, Glenn Beck has his moments where I'm impressed with him, like where he.
And the guy has, I will give him this, he has impeccable sources because he has called so many of the things that came out way later as everything he said about it was exactly right. Like the gun running that was going around the Mediterranean Sea and into, Libya and Egypt and things like that. Like he had it all fucking mapped out months before anybody else did.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot to be said about having fans within the intel community and fans within the special operations community who are willing to stick their necks out to give you information. As long as you don't tie it back to them, they're willing to tell you a hell of a lot. And what people in the special operations community are able to find out is a lot of really horrible shit.
Yeah.
The not watered down shit.
Right. So Glenn Beck, for anything that may be weird about, his beliefs and the things that he says sometimes, the guy does have great sources and he's able to put together what's going on. So if you're just looking for the bare bones, like the raw data, just ignore everything else he says and just pick the raw data out of his broadcasts.
Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to US news, it's amazing what the BBC will have. Like, they'll have a lot of really unvarnished information.
RT America also.
Yeah, RT.
Press TV does good work too.
The rest of the world's media is kind of obsessed with the US in a way that, like, we are the central focus of a lot of attention around the world, kind of at all times. Because
the U.S. is worldwide. Like,
it's because we're the last superpower.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. So, we get reported on a lot in international media outlets.
We're a dying empire, though.
We may be a dying empire, but I mean,
we're rotting.
Even prior to the Roman senators saying we can't defend you, fend for yourselves, and running, Rome was still something that mattered in the world.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So it's still, I mean, Rome still had an impact on the world, and Rome had an impact on the world long after it fell.
And Rome is still a household name. I mean, it's still.
Well, Rome just became the Vatican.
Yeah, true. But I mean, the Roman Empire, the great Roman Empire, there's still, it's still a huge part of our collective consciousness, even though it's no longer a thing.
Yeah, so just because an empire falls or is falling doesn't make it not matter immensely to the world. And America is an empire, despite what they want to tell you. We're still an imperialist power.
Right.
We may have caught only the tail end of imperialism, but we did catch that tail end. And remember, we won World War I. So when all the other empires fell, we were just getting started.
Yeah, and we didn't do the colonizing, not like Britain did.
Yep.
I know that people like to blame America for colonization, but it wasn't us. We were a colony and we broke away. That was Britain you're thinking of.
Well, Britain, France, Germany, Holland,
Spain.
And I love that the Dutch forget that they had a whole bunch of colonies. That's always fun. But
Spain for sure. I mean, that's all of South America now.
Yep, Spain, Portugal, but
there's a reason they speak Portuguese in Brazil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not even just that. It's that we do have colonies. I mean, we have Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, the Philippines.
Right. The Virgin Islands. I mean, and that's how Hawaii started. And it's not like we don't have some, but like this worldwide, the sun never sets on the British Empire shit, because they had colonies all around the world.
Well, does the sun ever set on the American Empire? I mean, really?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't, because we have military bases all over the fucking world, and those are more American soil than the British colonies were actually.
Yeah, we pretty much took the place of Britain.
Yeah.
We don't just ship our criminals to an island. Like,
yeah.
That's we're out of islands to ship them to.
Yeah, and they shut down Alcatraz. So.
Well, and there's a lot to be said about the fact that the British were like, we'll send them to this island, and then as the criminals who committed one of the 13 crimes that sent you to Australia are around Bondi Beach, they looked at Bondi Beach, which if you've never seen, look up a picture of it because you'll understand what I'm saying. And they went, wait a minute. You mean I
punishment?
3 loaves of bread and I have to spend the rest of my life
staying on the beach? Yeah.
Well, yeah. And Australia was born.
Right.
So it didn't work out real hot for him necessarily.
Well, to be
and the U.S. used to be a penal colony too.
To be fair, everything in Australia is trying to kill you.
Yeah,
that's true.
Well, wants to. They can't all accomplish it, but everything there wants to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, even the Western mountain pygmy or whatever that's like literally this big.
Yeah,
it can't kill you, but it really wants to. Like,
yeah. That whole fucking continent has an attitude problem.
They have a tick. They have a tick in Australia, the paralysis tick, which is aptly
Jesus Christ.
That will, when it bites you, will make you paralyzed. And scientists have studied it and figured out that in no way enhances the tick's ability to feed. They just do it because they can.
Wow.
Assholes.
Yeah.
Fuck ticks, man.
That is the most Australia of things ever. Like,
right?
No reason at all.
Like, you ever like a koala bear? Cute as fuck, right? Until they're soaking wet.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That's the stuff nightmares are made of, a wet koala. It's just like,
and they have enormous claws. They have enormous claws. They do.
Yeah.
They're tree climbers.
They have claws.
Can you get like syphilis or like they transmit syphilis or some disease?
Oh God.
Why would you be doing that with a koala?
I heard something crazy about that.
No, syphilis is one of the ones that can be transmitted by, I think, any bodily fluid, contact with it.
It's like if they bite you.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think syphilis has to be sexually transmitted.
I'm just thinking like, oh, this cute little bear. I'm having these feelings, and
it gives you like open sores, I think, and the infected fluids can infect other people.
It'll make you go crazy if it's untreated.
Yeah.
Well, it's what's his face? Scarface. Al Capone could tell you a lot about that.
Another perfect segue.
Mad King George. They say that he went mad because of syphilis.
Another perfect segue, Derica.
Yeah.
Pornhub.
Yes. SBU. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pornhub wants you to get horny for saving bees.
Nice.
The world's bees are disappearing, and good-natured horn dogs at Pornhub would like to do something about it. This safe for work, depending on where you work video explains, they've created a series of videos showing the important role bees play in plant reproduction that also, this being Pornhub, contains gluts of human sex noises and pizza guy delivery jokes.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. The B sexual series, BEE sexual series, is a quote whole new genre of porn dedicated to saving bees. The video takes footage of bees rooting around flowers to collect nectar, then add in the voiceover from porn stars to make it sound like the flowers are getting off.
That's fucking awesome.
Pornhub
That's
says
hilarious, dude.
for every click, they'll donate money to, quote, bee-saving charities.
How is it? It's 2019, and Pornhub is the most philanthropic company in the United States.
Well, think about it.
Idiocracy is here.
Is there anything like computers, these cell phones? They're all really developed the way that they have been
because of porn,
gamers, and porn, and that's it. So
quote, nature is bisexual, not bisexual, bisexual, which means most plants and trees rely on bees to have sex and breed.
Nature's a cuck.
The video says
strictly speaking, most flowers actually and trees actually are bisexual, but
most plants are in fact bisexual, producing flowers that contain both a pollen-filled stamen and an egg-holding pistil. But indeed, they are very often reproduced via the help of pollinators. Honeybees prominently included. In any ways, it's a porn site. They're trying their best.
My Gravenstein trees are like quad sexual because they need two other separate types of trees that can also pollinate each other, and they also need bees. So there are 3 other organisms required for my Gravensteins to be pollinated.
Pornhub is no stranger to charitable efforts, whether it's giving away $25,000 scholarships or releasing a Coolio video. This isn't the first time that they've gotten involved in environmental issues either. A couple years back, Pornhub asked you to help pandas reproduce by filming yourself fucking a panda costume. This time, thank goodness, they're not asking you to produce any pornography on your own, but they do at least seem to imply that you'll be cranking it to their educational films about honeybees.
Jesus
hey,
Christ.
man. I mean, I'm not here to kink shame. So
right.
I'll blow a load in that honey pot.
It's obviously safe for work because the video is on YouTube.
You'll pollinate that honey pot, right?
So
that's right.
I'm gonna have to watch that later.
Give us a sound effect, Andrew. We need it.
Hang on. I was looking for a
dip my pistol in that honey pot.
No, in that stamen.
Let's see.
Oh yeah.
Dip your stamen.
I dip, you dip, we dip.
Yeah.
No bother there.
Oh goodness.
It's just like I
but it's good. It's a good thing. Porn is like the largest international industry the world has ever seen. The porn industry is huge and it is global.
Yeah.
And it is so fucking wealthy. And it would be, I mean, I think it's great that, you know, that they
I wonder
think
who
about,
runs that.
Yeah. Well,
Hey man, I don't care who runs it as long as I get my thing. I don't.
yeah.
It's
Well, yeah, this is
As long as they're still paying for amateur videos, none of
yeah,
us
this is
give
the first time
a
you
fuck.
covered them back in the fall that they were offering to blow people for free the leaves off their lawns.
Right?
Yeah.
Snow plow.
And,
They were
and then
plowing.
last year they were plowing people for free or plowing
Yeah.
plowing the roads for free.
Yeah.
Weren't they filling in potholes too, or no?
Yeah, I
yeah,
think they
filling
did.
potholes. They did because they did the Pornhub will get you plowed, and Pornhub fills your holes.
Right.
Pornhub, yeah, and then they were blowing people the leaves
Yeah.
off the yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know
Pornhub will blow you for
Domino's was
free.
doing it too. But
And now it's bisexual.
Bisexual, BEE.
see, this just proves that the market can take care of things that the government
It
is like
can.
totally
It
incompetent.
absolutely can.
And when you talk about market here, I just because Derek had mentioned how big it was, I felt compelled to look up some numbers, and I'm horrified.
Oh God!
Did you say you're horrified?
I'm horrified objectively. At the same time, I completely understand.
Right.
But it just the
And
sheer
you're also
scale.
just a little impressed. I'm
Yeah,
sure
the
you're
sheer
just a
scale
little.
of these numbers. So,
Yeah.
in terms of the global porn industry, depending on the report that you look at, the porn industry's global net worth is $97 billion a year.
Yep.
97 billion with a B. This money is enough to feed 4.8 billion people per day.
Yeah.
Every year, Hollywood releases roughly 600 movies and makes $10 billion in profits. For comparison,
Jeez.
13,000 films on average are made per year for the porn industry for a profit to the tune of $15 billion.
Yeah.
It makes
And
more
with
money
way
than-
lower production costs.
Yeah, and it makes more money than the Major League Baseball Association, the NFL, and the NBA combined.
So now we know what the real official pastime of America is.
Exactly. It's not baseball, man. I mean, it's
No,
still
it's not.
of sorts, but and a little bit of pitching, a little bit of catching sometimes. It depends. I'm not
Right.
kink shame, just saying.
Come on, her
but-
face.
But
God, you guys, I'm gonna pee myself.
oh man, if you
I
think
hope I don't
that,
get a
Are we
ticket
talking
for
golden
disorderly
showers now?
conduct.
All this, and we still don't have a 9/11 theme porn.
oh my god, I know. I'm a little.
How do you
Little
know
shocked.
there isn't? Because
there
as
might-
Andrew
there's
said
no-
that
There's
the
no
internet is dark and full of terror.
Yeah,
Hey, I have one. She went down on me at free fall speed.
dude.
Yeah.
If you think this is bad, you should see me with the ding ding and all of the jokes and innuendo I had with the ding dings.
Yeah.
Up for sale, by the way. But
Melted my steel beam.
But Pornhub specifically, which is one of the industry's leading providers, claim their site has streamed in the past 12 months 75 gig of data per second.
Jesus Christ.
Per
Hey, how is
second.
the 9/11 not a sex move yet? Like you ram it in sideways until her sister passes out, right?
You secretly blow inside and then claim it with someone else.
Yeah.
The false flag sex move.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the. I'm calling that the 9/11. Somebody throw that on Urban Dictionary right now.
Yeah.
It's
You not
secretly blowing
decide to blame
inside,
it
blaming it
on someone else
It
while
was
you've got
similar.
your passport stuck.
I just
cracking
got
your ass.
a really bad mental image of the USS Liberty just laying on its back and people over it and just
Oh my
Oh,
god.
God.
all those dead seamen.
Oh God.
Oh, that's yeah. The so Pornhub, according to its statistics, get more visitors every month than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. In fact, X video on its own is bigger than Dropbox, CNN, and the New York Times combined. Mine, who owns Pornhub, Brazzers, YouPorn, and Reality Kings, is one of the top 3 bandwidth-consuming companies on planet Earth. The other 2 who can compete are Google and Netflix.
Wow.
I told you guys this was big fucking business.
Like, just
what she said.
Where's the soundboard, Andrew?
Oh God, hang on.
Do we have a
damn it?
Do we have a sound for hand rubbing?
Hand rubbing? I mean, I could maybe find something. I don't even. You know what? I'm gonna go on a terrorist watch list for even searching for the right terms for hand rubbing sound effect.
God, we're all going to hell.
Oh,
we can just use the cha-ching sound for that, and we'll just all know.
I don't even have like a regular soundboard. Like I meant to download one the other day, but because I have a stream deck now for my own live broadcast, like I can actually set them all up to be queued up on it. So like I haven't downloaded anything onto my phone, and I'm not using.
You're getting all professional over there and shit. We can't have that.
He has the video sponsor.
I do. I have a spot. That's actually why I'm wearing the shirt. Well, part of the reason why I'm wearing the shirt, the other reason is because I love their freaking shirts, which is why I asked them to sponsor me. So libertytees.com. If anybody's interested, we have the Get to the Choppa, the Anarcho Pewist t-shirt that I wear all the time. That's also there. Nice. I have a Liberty Beard Club one from them. I have a bunch more that you'll see in upcoming videos and stuff from me and on here. But big shout out to them because that's freaking awesome, and I love free shit. So,
what's the name of your channel on YouTube?
YouTube is Inked Anarchist. If you search for that, I am the only one on there. Although apparently not the only one on Gmail, which is confusing.
Yeah,
because I'm gonna subscribe. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, his channel is linked in the description below.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and then I do normally I do the Inked Anarchist Weapons Wednesdays. I didn't do it this week because it was Easter week, so I was busy. And I did my tax day special, which if you had nobody's gotten a chance to watch, is
that one. Yeah,
you gotta watch it. Fighting
hamster fighting, like that's a thing. Hamster fighting.
It's taxpayer funded, roided out, coke fiend trained hamster fighters is not something that is made up. That is real.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, this is the government that spends millions studying animal sexual habits. So
the sexual habits of Japanese quails while on cocaine, in fact. I also bring that one.
Okay. That's what
Jason,
I was thinking of.
I sent that quote to the group if you wanted to read that.
Yeah, we'll get to that at the end. I got one more story, and I'm only doing it because, well, I love Hunter S. Thompson, so I have to do this story.
Hell yeah.
Duncan police. This is Duncan, South Carolina. Man found with suitcase full of drugs after chase. Duncan police said a man with a suitcase full of drugs was arrested Monday after leading officers on a chase. Police said the incident began when the officers attempted to pull the driver over for not wearing a seatbelt. A chase ensued, which ended with the driver ran through a yard, ended up crashing into a concrete barrier next to a building. Police said the driver then tried to flee on foot but was captured. Police said a suspect had a gun and a, quote, a variable smorgasbord of narcotics and a black plastic suitcase in the car. Police said the suitcase contained ecstasy, cocaine, heroin, meth, assorted pills, needles, scalpels, and pipes.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, the second that I saw that blurb that you put up on Facebook, I was like, this guy is like the living incarnation of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's
go big or go home.
When I saw this article, I said I posted the quote: "We had 2 bags of grass, 75 mescaline, 5 sheets of high-powered bladder acid, a salt shaker half full of cocaine, and a whole galaxy of multicolored uppers, downers, screamers, laughers, and also a quart of tequila, a quart of rum, a case of Budweiser, a pint of raw ether, and 2 dozen anals. Not that we needed all that for the trip, but once you get locked into a serious drug collection, the tendency is to push it as far as you can.
Yeah, you guys
collection.
Yeah, you guys won't be able to see this if you're listening to this audio, but there's the picture that is associated with the article, and it literally looks like Hunter S. Thompson's suitcase. It really
that is really just impressive.
It's beautiful. It really is a beautiful thing.
And show me
Not
on
all-
the
not
doll
all
where
heroes.
any of it fucking hurt you.
If you're
know?
listening on the audio, I want to point out that is not only a suitcase, that is actually a Pelican case.
It does look like a Pelican case, yes.
That is a very, very expensive airtight sealing impact proof case. This man has put an enormous amount of effort into this, and its loss is a great tragedy.
Yeah.
Goff says that sounds like a perfect Saturday night. Okay.
I mean,
that thing was basically a performance art piece by that point in time.
Right.
Once you start the collection,
custom. Like it's super, I'm looking at the picture still, and it's super custom. It has padded foam top and bottom, and the bottom, like it has cutouts, so like everything has its place. So like this guy spent time making this.
That
the
man
dude is organized. He was definitely on coke when he was putting that.
Or meth.
We need to do this. We need to do this. I can't get this straight. I can't get this straight and start fucking mocking me. I'm actually, that case is better tailored to his drugs than most of my gun cases cutting of it.
My gun cases don't even have cutouts for the guns. They just have egg crate foam on the inside to like hold them in place.
Yeah. Police did not release the name of the suspect or his charges at this time.
Because the suspect was Hunter F. Thompson Jr.
Because they don't want a fucking public hero that they have to take down.
Right.
Where everyone's like, dude, that guy, you got to be impressed, man.
Somebody will build a shrine.
Yeah.
A variable smorgasbord of narcotics in a black plastic suitcase in his car.
That's a good word for it. Cornucopia would also be a good.
The fact that you could, and that's an accurate description. The fact that you can describe that as a veritable smorgasbord of drugs and narcotics, dude. I am not worthy.
Yep.
That was amazing. Like, holy crap! The only thing,
and to use a word like smorgasbord makes it sound like the cop himself was kind of fucking impressed.
Yeah, sure he was. He was like, Jesus, what? Really?
Let's get this shit in the evidence locker right fucking now.
Yeah, it's everyone. I guarantee you that Friday night at that police department.
Yeah.
Good night for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gee, I mean, I had that once. We accidentally, I was with a guy that I worked with doing a thing that I don't want to go into, but I was doing a thing in Reno, Nevada, and we were going to the gun range with part of my collection time and part of his collection at the time, and accidentally strayed into California like 1,000 feet.
Huh.
Which is actually easy to do if you're in Reno, because if you go up the freeway, it goes right into California. Or there's also a back road that goes that crosses the border too.
Yeah, and we didn't realize it until we saw a "Welcome to California" sign, and both of us look at each other and go, "Oh my God, we're going to prison." So,
because you're on the wrong fucking patch of dirt now.
Oh God, yeah. And so we whip a Yui in the middle of the road and start heading back. Well, the Yui gets witnessed by a CHP officer. However, he doesn't turn his lights on until we have passed the Nevada state line again and are back in Nevada. So he has no jurisdiction. But when he asked us if we had any guns or weapons in the car, we go, yeah, and handed him a pair of binders. Which had all of the ATF paperwork on all of the suppressors and short shotguns and short barrel rifles and automatics that we had in the car, which totaled, I'm going to offhand say 300. And we handed it to him, and he went, "Oh my god!" And like he looked impressed. He was like, "Oh my god, really? All of this is in the car?" I'm like, "Yep, right now."
Can I just look at it? I just want to look at it. Like,
I know, like,
can I just see it?
Yeah, can I? I've had cops too pull me over and then when I mentioned the guns I had in the car, like actually want to see them because they're like, I've never actually seen one of those in person. Can I look at that? Like they're super interested in looking at them. I haven't had that many issues with police over my weapons, to be fair. That is something that thankfully. Shut up, helicopter.
They're coming for you.
Yeah, dude, it's surveillance of the Blackhawks.
Yeah. That's strap on the cap. Is the local med flight because I live about 3 blocks from the helicopter landing pad for hospital. Yep. So they go like it's endless with them.
That's what they want you to think.
You know, we get a lot of helicopter traffic over our house, but it's all troop transports and Ospreys and Air Force or Marine One because we live like in the middle of all these military bases and like an hour and a half from DC. So,
I recognize UH-60s and flying bananas instantly. Like, I'll hear them and they do go over because we have a National Guard armory up by Sparta. It's Fort McCoy. They're not that far from us, and so we'll get the flying turds and we'll get the UH-60s and shit go over us. So I'll hear them and I know what they are before I even see them because you never forget. When you hear them in the context that I've heard them, you never forget what they sound like.
Right.
So I can recognize them immediately. That is not thuddy enough to be a military bird.
Right.
Yeah.
It's annoying as shit because it's
we get
all the time.
Military.
We get a lot of traffic here.
Yeah.
Occasionally
we get the ones that the power company sends out to inspect the grid, but those are little ones. They almost look like those little. Like the ones from MASH.
Yeah, they almost are too. I think they're actually made by the same company. If
we get the police ghetto bird.
Ghetto bird,
about it.
Nice. Well, yeah, because they use the Hudson as like a like a guide, go north and south. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So you guys got anything else?
Nope.
No, me neither.
Buy my book.
I'm boring. Buy Derica's book.
Yes.
Go to Andrew's YouTube page. They're both linked in the comments below. So is Dan's Facebook page, but Dan is on a ban.
He got Dan again.
He got Dan.
I'll be back and I'll be operating that page on the 26th. So
So
I'll wait my return.
And then by the 28th, he'll be Dan again.
Exactly.
Yep.
Committed as always.
Yeah.
Dan.
Committed all the way to the fucking asylum doors.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank God for Telegram.
Yes.
Well, on that note, I guess happy Easter.
Yep.
Happy Easter.
Happy birthday to my kid.
Uh-huh.
He turned 17 today.
And
happy birthday.
Happy anniversary to the Game Boy. It's its 30th anniversary of release today.
Whoa.
Shit.
Nice.
My daughter bought her own car the other day. We're all getting really fucking old.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So. On that note, get off our podcast, whippersnappers.
Yep.